Bismillah. Let's start. I would like to use this as an example where we can use exception handling. But basically we can use exception handling in anything, not in just a Swing application. And later on we're going to see here in the website that we're going to be talking about exception handling in just some kind of classes without even graphical user interface classes. So this exception handling, what is it all about? It's about now these scenarios. Notice now this is just showing the mouse exit, mouse enter, because we had that. I'm just going to remove those so we don't have the distraction that it gives us. And yeah, what is that? The my mouse listener. Okay, I don't want to have this my mouse listener. And then I'm still having some error messages. Click here and it takes me to this line. And by the way, this is kind of faster because I know that I need to find which line is it that I added the mouse listener to. And then you can just look here, everything you see in red, it means this is where you have a problem. All these yellow things, these are like some kind of warnings that are allowing you to, okay, if you'd like to go to them and do something about them. But if I'm interested in the errors, just look at, this is the line that has an error. I'm just going to remove that. Okay, and then we remove this, we run it again. So no more problems, no more mouses. But what if I press this? I get this exception. Now it's normal because when I press this exception, what happens is that I'm just going to look for my file. Okay, this is my file. So here, this line generated an exception because it tried to get the text, which is now an empty text. There was nothing. I pressed enter, and it tries to convert an empty text to an integer, and this creates a problem because sometimes the text is not convertible. So let's another example. If someone does this and press enter, now how can you convert this to an int? So you cannot do that. So how can I still deal with this issue? And I can maybe mention something here that is going to deal with it. Now notice one thing though, when I'm running the exception, check this line tf set text to be empty did not even run, because you see, I wanted to show you that if this time is run, I mean, you know what, I'm going to check this, even this one down there, and even this one after I finish. So just to show you that things are not these lines are not going to be executed because of this. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try to convert the text field into a number and then work my things out, and then I'm going to set these to be, get the focus and set the text to be empty, and then increase the number of tries and show it on the label. Now let's run. I'm going to press enter. Nothing has changed. This I cannot see if something was entered, but if I do something like this, for example, and then press enter, you see, did I press enter? Check. I'm seeing this exception. I mean, there are two exceptions. Oh, here it is. This is the other exception that I was looking. But because this one was on top, that's why I did not see it. There was another exception. This is the second time that the one I pressed enter, and this is when I pressed the button. So these are three exceptions now that I have. Let me just collapse these so I can just see them. Can I? Okay, this is one. Okay, it doesn't. And this is the second one, and this is the third one. But all of these involve this line over here. So once this line is executed, I'm not going to execute any of those. Now what I'd like to do is to deal with that and not have some kind of exception that stops this method from running. So in order for me to deal with that exception, I need to tell the code to alt insert is going to no, not alt insert. It's this here. Surround with. I just would like to surround it with a try catch. Now a try catch means this. Now notice what it does. It just puts the number to be 0 because it took it out of this. And then I'm just going to leave this as it is. Now what is going to happen is that it sets the number to be 0. If it tries to execute this thing and there was no problem, it will just keep going and continue. And this is why I'm going to put everything here. If there was no problem at all, it keeps going and then continues and everything. But if there's any problem, I don't want it to show something. What I'm going to do is basically, well, you know what, this thing I want to do it in all cases, so I'm going to do it at the end. And I'd like to put a message in the text field. The text area. Text area, that number, I'm going just to set the text to be wrong input, wrong number, or wrong input, let's say. I'm just not going to do this like that. I would just like to leave it wrong input, but then if there was something else, I would just like to add it. So if there was something in the that was displayed before, get text. So it will give me the text that was there before, and then it will put it below this wrong input. So if there was nothing, it's just going to put nothing there. Now the thing is that if I run here, if I press enter, it's going to say wrong input, no exceptions. If I put a number that doesn't make sense, wrong input again, and then it doesn't. It just clears everything, and then it still works. So now I'm able to deal with the exceptions. I'm managing the exceptions, and this is the exception handling. The exception handling means what? Means there's some code that might result in some problems. If that code might result in some problems, I put it inside of a try catch. The try means, okay, try to execute this code. If there's any exception, catch that exception and do this code over here.
Catch is like else, right?
Like an else, if you consider the try to be the if. If there's a problem, if there's no problem, then you execute this. Else there was a problem, then catch it and do something with it. Now that's the basic thing, which will allow us to just understand how this thing works. I just would like to mention this here. Now this catch here means I'm catching a number format exception. Just to show you what does this mean, I would like to remove these and then run again. Why? Because I would like you to see what kind of message do I get, what kind of exception do I have. Do you see the exception that I have? Is the kind of exception that is thrown by this. Now this parse int, if you look inside of it, this parse int might give you some number format exceptions, because it knows that, see, it tells you that this method might throw an exception, because if you try to convert something and then it's not possible to convert, this might result in this kind of exception. So you can result in this exception that if you want to catch it now, if you catch this exception, then you want to do something with it, then you do something with it. What you can do as well is that you can even use this kind of message that is given to you. Now what I'm doing is that this is just a local variable, this number format. It's the parameter that you can get the message. Okay, what was the problem? This get message is going to show you what is the problem. Now if I run it again, and if I press enter, it's going to tell me wrong input for input string this. Now if I type something else, it's going to tell me wrong input for input string this. What is that? This is the message that I used to get if I don't have this try catch. This is what I used to get when I'm running this thing, and I press enter. You see it says this is, oh sorry, I want to go back in the output. This is the message that I got. And if I run it again with some kind of press some text, and again this is the message that I got for input string. So this parameter will allow me to get some more information about that error message that I got. There's a lot of things that are toString that you can use. There's a lot of different get cause, get class, get stack trace. You can just try this if you want to have some kind of an idea about it. But that's mainly like an introduction to this try-catch. What I want you now to realize is, whenever you have some kind of piece of code that you think maybe there might be some problems, some exception that can happen in it, like an array where the size you can just put the index, the user gives you the index, maybe the user gives you a wrong index, and then you can put that into a try-catch. Try means try to execute the code. If there's any exception that happens, you catch it and then you do something with it. Now you catch it and then this is where you put something that happens. What you need to know is that once there is an exception in one of these lines, it stops executing the others. It just stops at this line. For example, the number is not correct here. It's just going to stop executing this line and jump to the catch. If there was no problem and then there was a problem here, for example, then it's just going to continue executing, and this is where the problem is. It's going to stop here and stop executing from there and then jump to the catch.
Except after the number, you can write system print line and
After number, which number here?
try S. And
Well, you can do whatever you want, but if there's an exception, this is not going to show up.
before the number.
Of course, before, yeah, because there was no problem, it will run. Now, for example, if I do something like this, this is going to be executed, but this one might be executed well, might not be executed well, depends on what the user gives me.
So execute.
So for example here, I'm going to run, I put 50 and press enter. You see, it just executed this line before and executed the line after, because you see I'm seeing 50 is too big. Because 50 is too big, it's executed this line here. So it went through all this, and then the number of tries were incremented, and the set the text were also incremented. See, this is empty now. It was 50 before, now it's empty. It was 0 before here, now it's 1. So it executes, but if you type something wrong, it just catch that problem, and you see it. I mean, it just deal with it. I forgot that I'm running too many of those. Yeah. So that is the try catch. You try some code, try to run some code. If you run into any exception, there was a problem, it will just get inside the catch and work with it. Yes. Yes. If there was a problem in the first line, it was just stop executing at that line, and that's it, and go to the catch. Yes, here. Yes. If the problem was here, for example, if there was a problem here, to execute up to this line, and then this is going to generate an exception. Yeah. If this condition is true. Yeah. So every time we have some line that creates a problem, it will execute up to that line. And then if that line has a problem, it's not going to be executed, and it goes to the catch. That's what how the try catch works. And that's basically what I'd like you to know as the basics of that try catch. Later on, we're going to talk more about this catch thing, because you see, you can have more than one catch. You can catch a lot of different things, because many exceptions might happen in one place. For example, I don't know, let me show you something. Let's say, for example, when it's too big, I'm going to do something like this: number equal 5 divided by 0. So we know that this division by 0 is a problem. Now if I run this thing, whenever it's too big, I have an exception. But I have a try catch. I catch the number format exception, but hold on, what kind of exception is this? Oh, this is another type of exception. This is an arithmetic exception. So if I'd like to do something with that arithmetic exception, I think it's time to let the bike go. I need to catch it again. So now I can catch again this arithmetic exception that I'm going to call it EX for exception, and then this arithmetic exception, I just need to do something here, and maybe I can say that now there was wrong input, but this time some problem occurred, and then this get the message is going to give me the message and then display it everything. So now I have two catches. I catch two type of exceptions. If there was a problem into the conversion, this one is going to be catching that conversion. Number format is going to catch that exception. This is about this here. If there was some kind of arithmetic exception, like something happens like this is going to be taken care of by this here. So if I run now, if I type 50, so it's too big, but some problem occurred. This division by 0, and then it shows me too big, because this happened before it shows me too big. But what if I do this before the put in this text is too big? Now if I do that, let me just write again. Now I just would like to show that if the number is too big, I'm not going to see the text in this text area saying that this number is 50 is too big. And let's see that. Here it is. Why? Because when this there was an exception that happened, it stopped here and jumped to the catch that is going to catch it. So there was no stop in here, but when it reached there, it stopped, and then it did not even execute this line. So whenever there's an exception, it does not execute, it just stops there. And then you can catch many exceptions if you want. How many catches can I have? Well, as many as you want. You can put a lot of them. Or you can do something else. If there are too many of them, you don't want to catch each one of them by name and do some specific thing for any exception that happens, because any one of these exceptions extends some kind of exception. And if you look at this number format exception, it extends something that extends exception. Exception is like the superclass of all exceptions, which means now if I just do something like this, I don't need to have many catches. I'll just rename this to EX. So any exception happens, I can say something wrong happened, and then it's going to work with any exception now. If I put something wrong, it's going to tell me something happened. If I just type the number correctly, then it's 50, and it's too small. But if I type a bigger number, oh, see, it's too small, 99, it's too big, and then something happened, division by 0. Because now I have two exceptions that might happen, one that happens here, and one that might happen here. And this catch with the exception is catching all of them. But if you would like to do something specific for each one of these exceptions, and then you keep them like that. Which means now if something happened, if there was a number format exception, I'm going to do this. If there was an arithmetic exception, I'm going to do that. And you know what, I'm going just to call it EX. That's what I used to do. It's kind of a short for exceptions, and it might be faster to work with. So this is the introduction to the try-catch, and I'd like you just to update that hidden number code of yours and add this exception handling so you can just catch the exception if it happens in the number of conversion. So to summarize, if some piece of code you think might generate some exceptions, you put it inside of a try, and then you catch the type of exception that can be handled. But how do you know what type of exception can happen? Well, either when the exception happens, you see the input here and you see what type of exception. It gives you the name of that exception. You just need to pay attention to the name so you can detect it. For example, by just removing this, I'd just like to run it again and see the exception. Let's stop and stop and run it again. Now if something happened, you just pay attention. This is the exception name, the name of the exception that happened that you would like to catch. Or if you just run it again, and even if the number is okay, I know it's too big, and there's an exception because this is the arithmetic exception. This is because I'm dividing by 0, so on purpose. so you can just see the different type of exceptions. And then this is how you can get to catch each one of those exceptions and do something about each one of them. So this says wrong input entered, and this is like some problem occurred and whatever because of these different things. So I'm just going to leave these and let you try that.